You know, niggas gotta get their priorities together. Got their mind on the wrong things, spending their money in the wrong way.
Trapaholics, real trap shit.
Say you need that car with the rims and that charm, just like Jim. It's more than life. Yeah.
I'm telling you. Talk to him.
Say you need that LV bag
For what?
with the belt and the hat.
That's all you got though.
It's more than life. Yeah.
Talk to him. Real.
Say you wanna turn up at the club,
Why?
buy some bottles, impress them girls.
what?
It's more than life.
Oh, fucking everybody.
Yeah.
Damn, son, where'd you find this?
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Saints and Appetizers podcast. And who dat? We are here for some main course. We've been eating a little bit of appetizers, getting our flavor, our appetite revved up a little bit, and we're back onto some main course here. There's been a lot of Saints news. Just little tidbits here and there, bunch of stuff to kind of go over, and we'll get into that stuff here. But first, this is a story that I thought was, I guess, time is flying here in the off season, because I swore this story was just like a week ago. But the story about Foster Monroe going into remission, that seemed to be kind of a story that kind of got glossed over by a lot of people. But yeah, that happened July 4th. Like, that's it said 2 weeks 2 weeks ago, but it says July 4th on this article here. But yeah, but I got some other stuff that happened more recently. So let's get into some of this stuff right now. So can I get a menu? And yeah, the thing with Foster Monroe, I'm trying to figure out what exact day it was. I'm just gonna say it was as of like Monday, like 2 weeks ago. He was announced that cancer had gone into full remission, which I guess he was diagnosed with it like 3 months ago when he was going through the process with the Saints, the physical, which I figured that if this all turned out okay, that he probably was going to sign with the Saints. Found it hard to believe that he would, because he originally had a free agent visit with the Cincinnati Bengals, but nothing ever came of that. They didn't find the lymphoma or any of that. So it just felt like I've said it before that he didn't really owe the Saints, but he kind of owed the Saints a little bit for finding it. And it's all working out really well, that, he's a quality, good player, probably got him for cheaper because of the diagnosis. And now, you thought maybe you weren't going to get him, have him this year, that maybe he'd be out half the season, but now it looks like heck, he's going to be right here ready for training camp. Let's see. Here's just some stuff that he said here. Some quotes. This is Foster Monroe. So after a few tumultuous months, I've been blessed with the news that I am in full remission from Hodgkin's lymphoma. And then he goes on with some tweets. I am so grateful to everyone who reached out to offer their love and support. Our prayers were answered. From here, I will continue to live my life as God intended. And that just seems to be perfectly stated, So he goes from respecting God, praying to God, to now he's becoming a saint. Not one and the same, but just a track that we like to see play on, people healthy and then being able to do whatever they need. Here's some other quotes. He said, with fellow athletes that have had the issue as well. Roman Reigns, not a football player, but a pro wrestler for WWE, he had Hodgkin lymphoma twice. Like, it came out of remission. So this comment here, quote here, kind of feeds into that a little bit. I'll continue to fight this as long as I need to. As many times I need to fight this and go into remission, I will. So, I mean, he's a fighter. Haven't seen him play much as a Saint yet, but he's definitely a fighter and a player that we want to have on our team. So, even though cancer goes in remission, it can just come back just like that, because that's what I was stating with Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns had it, and then it came back again, and then he was out of wrestling there for a little while. But as of right now, it looks like everything's all clear. And even before he'd gone into like full remission, he was there for voluntary practices and OTAs and things like that. So, if he's going to show up for that stuff while still question marks about his health, then that tells me he's a fighter, and he's a real football guy. He's a gridiron guy that the Saints are, now that he's completely healthy. It seems like, not completely healthy, I guess you can't say it's in remission, but he's not completely out of the deep waters yet. But with him being healthy and signing him for much cheaper, man, the Saints are just lucky. Lucky. That's just some good luck that the Saints haven't had in a while. All right, so let's see what else we're talking about. This is just let's see, story. On to dates, some training camp dates. This is something a lot of people, local people, and maybe if you're trying to see if they were saying if you're doing it with the Texans, if you live in Texas or you live in New Orleans, you may be able to catch some of these training camp practices. So I'll just go over that to inform people that don't really know when that stuff starts and if they're available to go to those for free. So I guess rookies report July 18th, which that's crazy. That's just today is Saturday, July 15th. So that's like 3 days away, which is crazy to me. July is just blowing by. Like 4th of July happened, and next thing you know, I wake up, it's 2 weeks later, it feels like. And then veterans report on July 5th, 25th, in the first practice will not be padded. Padded is on first practice, which will not be padded, is on July 26th. So they all, I guess, show up for practice by the 25th, and practices won't be padded yet. Okay, so these are training camp practices open to the public. So these are open to the public, and I'm sure are also in New Orleans. So Friday, July 28th is open 9 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. And then Saturdays, July 29th, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. And then Monday, July 31st, 9 a.m. to 11:30. And then Friday, August 4th, 9 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Saturday, August 5th, 9 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. And Saturday, August 6th, 9 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. And then Thursday, August 10th, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. So there's a lot of opportunities to go and watch the Saints, and I think it depends on if you're a season ticket holder or you're a waiting list member or if you're just general public. Depends on the time that you can reserve your free ticket to go see their practices. And I think it starts out Monday, July 17th. Season ticket holders are allowed to reserve a ticket, and then waiting list members the next day, Tuesday, July 18th. And then it's open to the general public to be able to get their spot, get in there and get their spot. And that's Wednesday, July 19th. And it's a limited basis, but they'll be available at 10 a.m. So if you're really wanting to go, you need to get in there. And then there's some information like joint practices guess that's with the Chargers are August 17th and Friday, August 18th, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. And then joint practices with the Texans on Thursday, August 24th and Friday, August 25th. The sessions with the Texans will not be open to the public, while the Chargers will announce their sessions as exclusive to their season ticket holders. So they're not quite as generous as the Saints. It doesn't sound like the Texans not allowing any open practices to that joint practice, and then the Chargers only allowing season ticket holders to reserve those practice spots. So that tells you something, Saints fans, Hootats, that you're fans of a very gracious owner and Gail Benson, and a gracious organization wants to really include their plans and everything. And then just roster this is just preseason schedule. The first preseason game is on Sunday, and then the opener will be part of it'll be a part of NFL Network's broadcast, while the finale will be nationally televised on Fox. And then week 1 of preseason is August 13th versus the Chiefs at 12 p.m. Central, and then week 2 of preseason, August 20th at Chargers at 6:05 p.m. Central Time, and then week 3, August 27th versus the Texans at 7 p.m. and that's all Central Time. So if you're in the South, it's Central Time. Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana, Missouri, all those places, and that's the right time for you. And the roster cut downs this year it's been the same for a while, going from 90 to 53 players, and the deadline is Tuesday, August 29th. So that'll be an interesting date to see what Saints players get cut, and what players from other teams that may interest the Saints may get cut, and add-ons and additions of veterans, and maybe some young players that other teams just couldn't fit on their training practice squad. But yeah, I mean, you look at these dates for training camp, it's just a couple days away, which is wild. It's just a couple days away where rookies have to report on the 18th, which is just 3 days away, and then the first preseason game is August 13th, so it's not even a month away. So the season and training camp and preseason games, they're just nipping at our heels. It's going to be here, Saints fans. Not long now. And then this is just kind of similar, not in the same breath as the Foster Monroe lymphoma, Hodgkin's lymphoma story, but similar to the fact that I've gone over it several times now, bringing it up and talking about it. But hopefully this is the end of it, because Alvin Kamara's civil case settled on confidential terms, and that was, see when that was. That was on Tuesday, I think, back on July 11th, and it was just, let's see, like the guidelines of this settling of this case. So Alvin Kamara's legal troubles appear to be behind him after the news broke on Tuesday regarding a no contest to a misdemeanor charge. He has to serve 30 hours of community service within 90 days and pay a $500 fine, and then pay out $105,196.17 in medical bills to the victim, Darrell Green. So he's with the community, the state, the government, he's getting off pretty easily, only having to do the 30 hours of community service and a $500 fine, but he's having to pay out at least at least. It says it's confidential terms, so there's some stuff that's not not disclosed here. But he's having to pay out at least $100,000 in medical bills on top of that for Darrell Green. So, but it says this is the Busby law firm, and I laugh every time I read that or see that, because that is definitely one of those law firms that you see on TV, on daytime TV with the lawyers on there. Call me if you need help right now. We'll only ask for money if you win. That's what that law firm name reminds me of, Busby Law Firm. But I think they were trying to get 10 million originally, but some of it's undisclosed, so that there may be a couple million sliding Darrell Green's way, so he doesn't try to get this to be a felony, and all it is just a misdemeanor. But they made him apologize too, which this is, they sent a text. Tony Busby released the public apology of Alvin Kamara, which I know Alvin Kamara didn't type and send this email, but it says, "Dear Mr. Green, please accept my sincere apologies for the events on February 5th, 2022 in Las Vegas. I am happy that we were able to get on the other side of this unfortunate incident, and I wish you the best of the future. Sincerely, Alvin Kamara," and it's got his name and it's got his signature. But do I really believe that he was the one that sent that email? That's why you got agents and stuff to do that for you, agents and lawyers to send people that kind of stuff. But so all the legal troubles are out of the realm of possibilities. Alvin Kamara, he's not going to become a felon now, at least, but there's still some legal process to be had, and that's through the NFL. And this is I guess this is the guidelines for violent cases, for violent outbursts and things like that. This is what would fall under that category. An individual is subject to discipline under the policy if the person is determined to be guilty or a criminal charge, or if the NFL investigates, demonstrates the person engaged in conduct prohibited by the policy. Depending on the nature of the violence and the person's record, discipline may be a fine, suspension, which that's the one we're mostly worried about, is suspension, community service, or a combination of the three. Violations, including assault, battery, domestic violence, sexual assault, will result in a baseline of 6-game suspension, at least 6 games. So, and that's without pay. With more, if aggravated factors are presented, such as the use of weapon or a crime against a child, a second offense will result in banishment from the NFL, which that's what happened to Ray Rice. And I don't know if he actually had a second incident. It was just that they gave him his punishment, and then after they gave him his punishment, they had a video came out of Ray Rice slumping his wife in the elevator. So they had to do more than just give him, I can't even remember. It was just like a 2-game suspension for Ray Rice. But they're completely different stories and events that happened here, because Alvin Kamara beat up a guy. Ray Rice beat up a woman. Honestly, in this community, this state of the United States of America, we don't care. People don't care too much about a man beating on another man, even if it was multiple men beating on another man. We just don't care. I think a lot of people look at that and think Darrell Green Jr. probably shouldn't have put himself in that position. But now it's just a wait and see review for the Saints and Alvin Kamara to see how many games he gets suspended. And just reading that little bit of information, the guidelines for violent suspension, reasons for suspension, it sounds like it's at least 6 games, and I've heard other people report thinking that it'll be less than 6 games, or maybe he'll get 6 games and then he'll appeal it down to 6. But after reading that, it sounds like it's almost, that's a minimum of 6 games. It says baseline. I mean, he wasn't found as being a felon or anything, but what he did still wasn't good. I mean, a normal person that doesn't have $100,000 just to throw around probably would have gotten a felony charge for this. But I guess now it's just wait and see. There's like that over under. Like, do you think he's going to get more than 6 games, or are you going to get less than 6 games? I'm going to say that he's going to get the 6 games at least, just because he's a Saint and nothing else. But it's nice that that's over. Hopefully, until the decision comes down of how many games he's actually suspended, hopefully I don't have to talk about Alvin Kamara and his legal case. Now I'm still wondering when the case for Marcus May will come in, because I mean he got a DUI or DWI like 2 years ago, and they still haven't come down with that case's ruling. They keep just like the Alvin Kamara case. They just kept moving the court date back. But I mean, he should be getting suspended 3 or 4 games for that once that comes down. On top of the I guess he was accused of a road rage incident and flashing a gun at some girls. So I hadn't heard any more of that story either. So hopefully, if nothing else, hopefully that's the end of the Saints' legal troubles. Players getting suspended and doing boneheaded things this offseason. So just take a deep breath and hope for the most part that that's over with. All right, just got a few more little tidbits, nothing too exciting here. The Saints hired director of analytics from the Jets. Just before I even get into this, you think of that, like how analytically successful have the Jets been over the years of knowing when to go for it on 4th down, knowing when to punt on 4th down, knowing when to do fake field goals, fake punts, things like that, when they should run and all that. I just find it hard to believe that the best person to sign for that analytic job would be an former analytic director of the Jets. But anyways, I mean, we got him. Can't say too much, because I mean the Saints during this off season they seem like they signed half the Cleveland Browns defensive staff. So we got Joe Woods as our defensive coordinator from the Browns, and it's been a while since I can say that the Browns have been all that great either, even though they have some good players on that defense. Denzel Ward, Myles Garrett. I think if what's his name was on there last year. I can't remember what his name is. The freak athlete linebacker for the Texans a couple years ago. Let's see here. It's gonna drive me crazy if I can't remember what his name is. Jadeveon Clowney, that's who I was trying to think of. That's a player that the Saints were trying to get a couple of years ago, and he was with them last year. He was with the Cleveland Browns last year, but I think during the off season and stuff, he said that I guess he had disputes and arguments with how Joe Woods was using him. So I've seen some people say, "Oh, the Saints need to sign Jadeveon Clowney," but I don't see why he'd have issues with Joe Woods and then want to come and play for him again. So I don't see that necessarily happening. But anyways, back here on our guy, Zach Stewart, who's now the new director of analytics for the Saints. He was with them since 2020, and as far as I can remember, the Jets haven't been successful since then. But he was a coordinator of football analytics for them. The Saints parted ways with Ryan Herman back at the end of May, who spent 6 years with the team. And the reason I mentioned him in the 6 years he's been with the team, that's the statement that's come out from Sean Payton about how he mentioned how he thought the analytic department for the Denver Broncos were so much better than the New Orleans Saints. So it's interesting that the Saints got rid of Ryan Herman, the guy that had been the analytics, the head of the analytics for the past 6 years. That I guess it wouldn't have been last year, but it would have been like the last 5 years of Sean Payton. So it should be interesting how this turns out. Will they get much? What was it? Because Ryan Herman was terrible, or that the Denver Broncos are just one of the best teams analytically. I mean, he lost his job to an ex-Jet coordinator, so it should be interesting. Any little part of coaching, that can get elevated for Dennis Allen is great. So seeing him want to grow in this category and hopefully get some more ideas and just insight on some of the data that maybe he hasn't had a good grasp on, I guess, from what Sean Payton said has been trash for the last 6 years, because he was solely Dennis Allen was solely using Ryan Herman just last year. But I really can't think of any moments where I was like, I guess there were some moments, I take that back, where Dennis Allen just kind of played it safe. I can't even count, now that I think about it, I'm thinking about it more, I can't even count on like one hand how many times the Saints actually went for it, like on 4th and short, when it wasn't necessary for them to do it. Like they just kind of showed no aggressiveness in that category for going for it. Like once you're close to midfield, out of field goal range, even though it's only 4th and 2, they seem to punt a lot more than you would think would be a good amount to do. It seems like you're leaving a lot of points on there, and you're just outside field goal range, and it's 4th and 1, 4th and inches, and you decide to just punt instead. That happened a couple times in games that were kind of close last year. But yeah, I don't really know how to track that. I don't know how to track that stat too well of whose analytic department's better than the other. I don't know if I've ever seen a ranking come out for something like that. Pro Football Focus or Pro Football Reference. I don't think I've ever seen a list for the best analytic team in the NFL. So it should be interesting to see how that plays out now that the guy Sean Payton was saying was terrible is gone, and we filled that void with an ex-Jet coach. All right, that's enough of that. And just to kind of finish this all out, looks like the Jets have been chosen for Hard Knocks in New York for despite them protesting the participation. It looks like they picked them. And that was kind of how I think most teams felt in being on Hard Knocks. I think that's just how teams feel in general about being on Hard Knocks now. They think it's a distraction. I think Dennis Allen, he mentioned how he thought it would just be a distraction, and they didn't want it as well, basically saying all the same stuff that that Slara had to say. So he had one statement in here saying how he thought he knew a lot of teams that would want to be on the team. Robert Saleh, how he thought he knew a lot of teams that would want to be on the team, that the Jets just weren't one of them. But then I read that teams can volunteer to be on Hard Knocks if they meet the guidelines for it. They hadn't been to the playoffs in a couple of years, haven't been on Hard Knocks in 10 years, don't have a new coach, but there weren't any of those teams coming forward to jump on and be on Hard Knocks. So Robert Saleh, he straight up lied to people saying that, because that's definitely not true, that any team would want to volunteer to be on there. But should be exciting. It should be entertaining seeing this Jets team on there. With I don't know how much you'll actually see Aaron Rodgers. Knowing him, he'll be very much against it, and you probably hardly see him on there. But I mean, you got a bunch of young players too, like Sauce Gardner and and Breesy, the running back that got hurt, and just a lot of young talent on that team. So be interesting to see how that goes. I gotta be honest though, I am a little disappointed that we won't get to see the Saints in that light. Won't get to see the locker room and the behind the scenes, and maybe kind of see what kind of character some of these players are. You miss a lot of that with players just having a helmet on all the time, and they haven't released the date for when these episodes will start. They're saying last season first episode was on August 9th, so if you were just going off of that, I guess that's a couple months away. And they said like making announcements for it. I guess this is kind of late in the year for them to make the announcements, because they made the announcement for this July 12th, but in previous years they've made it a couple months before that. Like in the 2022 Lions were the announcement for that was the 28th, and the 2020 Rams Chargers was April 20th. So it should be, and I think the Packers, or not the Packers, but the Jets, they show up, all their players and stuff show up for training camp soon. So I mean, they'll have to be getting those cameras in the locker room pretty fast. But none of those shows are live or even close to being close to when they were recorded. It's all pre-recorded stuff. But still, I think it'll be fun. But still shed a little bit of a tear because don't get to see the Saints on there. But in the long run, I think it's probably good for this team. You still got I don't want to say he's not a veteran coach, or he's not skilled, in Dennis Allen, because he has been a head coach for a couple of years now with the Raiders, and now 1 year with the Saints. But any less distractions for him, I think, are good. And this team has some young players now. Kind of has a bit of a young core going, with Trevor Penning, Chris Olave, this new draft class coming in. I mean, there's a young core of players that they don't need any distractions either. So I'm good with it. And honestly, I think it'll be kind of fun to watch the Jets too. So even though you don't get to see the Saints, and that's kind of a bummer, I think it'll be just as exciting and just as interesting watching the Jets. But anyways, I think that's all I have for everyone. And who dat? And can I get a check, please?